For the total denuclearization of an area of the world that was very dangerous.
There's ample evidence of collusion of the campaign.
This guy's a joke. He says the evidence of collusion is right in front of us, but guys, when you say that, typically you actually produce said evidence, which he has failed to do.
The president declared this national emergency, and now House Democrats are trying to block it, and that happens today.
The national emergency legislation from 1976 gives wide latitude to the president.
New York firefighters heading to Capitol Hill today to fight for the surviving victims of 9/11. Their compensation fund is running out of money.
Brad Keselowski is going to win the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
For Best Picture. And the Oscar goes to Green Book.
Which we all watched on the plane.
We've all seen it on the plane, on the small screen.
Right. You know what, though? I didn't finish it because the plane landed before before the movie ended, so I got to watch it again.
You do?
Okay, but yeah, I have to fast forward.
Yeah, you would think that the one time the plane lands on time.
Were they successful?
Yeah, he dies. Okay, sadly. But the actor won who played him.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it was no host
Most people know he died.
I know.
That's true.
I know,
It's commonly known.
It's like Old Yeller, right?
Yes.
Did you guys watch the
Get
Oscars,
shot.
though? Did you watch it?
Did we what?
Watch it?
I watched a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I watched, yeah.
We did
Because I knew we were
discuss
gonna be talking about
the old Yellow movie. We definitely think they overreacted. I mean, there's always something else you could do except shoot a dog.
Sometimes.
All right. So that was last night, the Oscars, and big week ahead. The president is going to Vietnam, going to meet with Kim Jong-un.
Ed Henry is going to be, he's our chief national correspondent, demands to be introduced as chief correspondent, so I just want to make sure legally I got that right. Ed, tell us what to expect.
Well, guys, the president is clearly fired up. He's about to meet with the nation's governors at the White House, but he just tweeted moments ago that when he heads over here to where I am in Hanoi, he is confident that Kim Jong-un will make what he calls a wise decision to move towards complete denuclearization of his nuclear program in exchange for becoming an economic powerhouse. First, he would have to verify that he's moving that way, Chairman Kim, and then the U.S. would be open, of course, to relieving tough U.S. sanctions that are right now crippling the North Korean economy. Let's remember, you see those pictures there. It was just last June that President Trump made major progress by sitting down with the dictator. They signed a framework that included, by the way, bringing back some remains of our soldiers who were lost in the Korean War. Was a big step. We're also told that now on the table in Hanoi will be the possibility of a formal end to the Korean War, which never happened. That could move things forward. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says this is a whole different, tough approach compared to the Obama days. Watch.
Test, pray, and cower has been upended by President Trump. We've put real economic pressure on the North Koreans. We've built out a global coalition. One of the critiques is that we go it alone. We've built out the world's coalition to communicate to Chairman Kim that now is the time, now is the moment, and I hope we'll make real progress on that this week.
Well, new this morning, Senate Democrats have a tough letter to the president demanding that he stand strong against Kim Jong-un, saying in part, we believe your next meeting with Kim that thus must demonstrate tangible, verifiable progress on denuclearization. They're trying to lay out a tough stand there, but interesting because the critics on the Democratic side did not take the same approach back in the Obama days, number one. And number two, some of those same critics a year and a half or so ago charged the president, President Trump, was moving us closer to nuclear war with his rhetoric. Just the opposite has happened as the temperature is dialed down, guys.
Ed Henry, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Great reporting out there. Appreciate it.
All right, 4 minutes now after the hour, let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and host of a brand new podcast. It's excellent, called Newt's World. So you can go get it, download it, find out what Newt's thinking about. But I want to find out what you're thinking about now. Newt, what does success look like on North Korea, this summit, too?
I think success is any steps towards a more open North Korea, any steps toward accountability for where their nuclear weapons are. I don't think you're going to get a sudden jump. I know the president's always very optimistic. He's always very positive. But I don't think he's going to get a gigantic jump unless the combination of economic opportunity and offering to end the war, which after all militarily ended in 1953. So you could argue that after 66 years, it wouldn't be too big a risk. But that would have real implications for life on the Korean Peninsula. And I think that they've got to approach it very carefully because it could change our status in South Korea, which would be potentially very destabilizing.
They could tell our soldiers to leave, right?
This stuff's pretty complicated.
Yeah, they could tell our soldiers to leave?
They would raise... Look, they couldn't tell them, but they could raise the question, why are you still here if the war's over? Now, on the side of the South Koreans, I think they clearly believe, Clifton and I were just there about 3 weeks ago and spent some time in Seoul and went up to the DMZ, to the militarized zone. And we really got the sense that the South Koreans very much want to see us move forward, but carefully and cautiously, because there's not a huge level of trust here. I think what the president's done so far in opening up Kim Jong-un, getting him to travel, frankly, if you have his kind of dictatorship, every time you leave the country, you got to wonder whether or not the military is going to let you back in. So I think just getting him to travel is a significant step in the right direction. And I think Secretary Pompeo has been very clear. If he doesn't move forward, we're just going to have tougher and tougher economic sanctions and continue to grind down his economy. So he gets to decide which future he wants.
Media's been pretty critical about this, at least certain people on the Sunday shows yesterday. Do you see any criticism here? Isn't one meeting better than no meeting? Or two meetings, I should say?
Look, if the president did not go to Hanoi, the media would be very critical. If the president goes to Hanoi, the media will be very critical. If the president announces that in a magic moment, Kim Jong-un has joined the Rotary Club, totally demilitarized, eliminated all of his nuclear weapons, they'll find something new to be critical of. You know, the objective reality is that there's a very substantial part of the American elite which knows that they hate Trump. They know that they dislike anything he does. And if he brought every one of them a large chocolate ice cream sundae, they would still be mad at him because he didn't put the cherry on top. So I don't take seriously anything on Sunday shows. Period.
There we go. Well, Mr. Speaker, there was a resolution that's in the House of Representatives in reaction to the president's declaration of a national emergency. He declared an emergency at the border, going to build the wall with money elsewhere. Democrats responding, trying to invalidate that. But you've got some Democrats going even farther, Mr. Speaker. Governor Jay Inslee says Democrats will use this tool to declare a national emergency on climate change. Listen.
But ultimately, in responding to the climate change emergency, we need to work together, executive and legislative branch. But if there are new rules, the Republicans have to understand that Democrats will play by whatever the rules are, particularly when it comes to climate change.
Sorry, another Sunday show there, Mr. Speaker. But what do you say to that threat from Democrats?
Look, I say, first of all, if you look at the total number of executive orders that Barack Obama issued and the number of times that he pushed the margins of behavior, it's a little hard to get too worried about the next time. Second, the Democrats in the House will pass something. They have the votes. But they won't pass it by a big enough margin to override the president's veto. So my advice to the president is relax, build the wall, veto the resolution if it gets through the Senate. Don't worry about it. You'll be sustained. And just get your job done. I mean, create jobs, continue to grow the economy, he's gaining dramatically, for example, among Latino voters for a practical reason. They've got jobs and their salaries are going up. So I think he ought to focus on doing his job and not worry too much about all the political noise.
Yeah, let's hope people realize that if you're strong on the border, it doesn't mean you're anti-Hispanic. Meanwhile, we cannot wait to listen to the latest version of your new podcast, Newt's World, at Gingrich360.com, available on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get podcasts. Good job, Newt.
Congratulations.
Good. Good to be with y'all.
Thank you.
Always.
Appreciate it. Good stuff. All right, now I'm going to try a Brian toss and send it over to Jillian. How was that?
No, you have to do it
It has to be awkwardly, though.
Right.
Is this awkward?
Here's someone who's...
Now it is.
I was trying to make it awkward.
How about this? Here's somebody not on Newt's podcast today, Jillian.
You're right, I'm not. Good
Awkward
morning.
enough.
Wow. Let's start with this Fox News alert. The suspect in the hit-and-run death of a police officer is now one of Tennessee's most wanted. Janet Hines faces vehicular homicide charges after police say she hit Chattanooga officer Nicholas Gallagher and then took off on Saturday night. The officer just graduated from the police academy last month. Police found the suspect's car 5 miles away. There is now a $2,500 reward for information. Disgraced music star R. Kelly could walk free on $1 million bond in Chicago today. Lawyer Michael Avenatti is preparing to turn a second tape over to prosecutors, which allegedly implicates the singer in a sexual assault of a minor. Kelly is expected in court this morning on 10 sexual assault charges after failing to make bail over the weekend. R. Kelly has repeatedly denied similar allegations in the past. President Trump says he's delaying a planned tariff hike on China that was supposed to take effect on Friday.
We're doing very well with China, and if all works well, we're going to have some very big news over the next week or two. And then we put ourselves into a position of strength for the first time in about 35 years, or probably a lot more than that.
President Trump also announcing a new summit with China's president at Mar-a-Lago to finalize a trade deal. No date has yet been set. One of Hollywood's biggest nights, packed with big moments and, as always, big winners. The most coveted Oscar award, Best Picture, going to Green Book and Regina King.
All right. I still like her speech best. Eventually, we're going to get to it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. 12
You
minutes.
turn on radio, Brian.
I guess so. 12 minutes after the hour.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger just got back from the border where he was deployed with the National Guard. What did he find out? We'll ask him live. Coming up next.
Plus, Bill Maher taking a shot at middle Americans because of their lifestyles. And your comments are pouring in on this one. That's coming up next.
Are having a big prosperity party while that big sea of red feels like their invitation got lost in the mail. The flyover states have become the passed-over states. That's why red state voters are so pissed off. They don't hate us. They want to be us.
They want to be us.
That's his point of view, sitting here in New York City at 40, right by Bryant Park and 43rd. That's how he feels. If he's not there, he's in Los Angeles. But I find it hard to believe he even understands what a red state person thinks because he never goes there. He literally flies over them and comes back and forth. But that's the view you brought up earlier. It's very similar to Hillary Clinton's view of
flies over them and then literally and metaphorically looks down on them and says, "I'm better than you." I think,
but then needs them when it comes to voting.
Of course, it's one of the beautiful things we get to do on this show is you talk to people from Middle America. I go to the diners across the country and talk to folks. That's a voice you never hear on other networks at all. Yet they're the ones that build things. They drill for our oil. They grow our crops. They pray at football games. They join our military. They're still the heart of America. I go to Texas and I say America still lives in Texas, and so other places across this country. And Bill Maher would never know because he cocktail parties with his fellow elites and mocks you.
30 to 20, I believe. President Trump won more states than Hillary Clinton for that reason. Bottom line is there's a concentrated population in the major cities. That's why they want to get rid of the Electoral College to discount what those states mean. Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota was on with you guys earlier. We played that clip for her. Here's her reaction.
Well, maybe he needs to spend some time in South Dakota because we just have phenomenal people that love our country. They're raising their families in communities that take care of each other, that serve each other, and we have a work ethic that cannot be compared to anyone else. So, our people in the heartland do the hard work that makes this country strong, and we're just so proud of where we are and where we come from.
Yeah, I remember growing up, Dad always said, don't ever forget from where you came. And I am so fortunate to have grown up in the South. I know all of us had similar experiences.
Right. I was told don't ever move out of where you came. I live in the same place.
Long Island.
We asked you to weigh in, and you have all morning long. Sorry, Lindsay.
That's right. So this individual said, I'm sad for Bill Maher. He is missing out on meeting and knowing some wonderful people. We may not agree on issues, but we can still respect and appreciate each other.
That's right. And a tweet from Kim said, I'm from the heartland and I have an MBA. I would rather be a nobody than someone who thinks they are smart and important. Well said.
All right, Brian says this, not this Brian, I don't think. I'm happily married to the same woman for 22 years. I know it's not me because I'm up to 25. I have 4 children that actually love me, and I love them. We work hard to provide all we can with the blessing from God. I have everything I want in life. There is nothing in Bill Maher's life I desire.
What a good man. I like him.
Right. I'm going to just give you some nuance to this. A lot of people in blue states are so unhappy with the tax structure, they're moving to red states. And they're changing the structure of Florida, and they're changing Texas because they're taking their big city attitudes going to a low tax state because that high tax area has sent everybody to the hills.
Yeah.
And I think 53% of Californians are thinking about moving out of the state. I mean, that's astounding.
Yeah. Well, never did I ever think I would live in a city where they're cheering because Amazon's not coming here.
I know.
We lost 25,000 jobs. Third cheering for that third-term abortion thing and lighting up the World Trade Center in pink.
Listen, I hear from those tweets, and I hear from it's gratitude and patriotism is what you hear in the heartland, and the willingness to fight for what you believe in. And without the heartland, we don't have America.
And keep in mind, when the president fights to bring manufacturing back and he wants to fight for trade and fairness on trade, he's fighting for middle America. And it's early pain. He thinks will yield gain because they're the ones who've been hit. When we hit the tariffs, they responded.
All right, 20 minutes after the top of the hour, Congressman Adam Kinzinger just got back from a deployment at the border with his National Guard unit, and he says what's going on there proves that we need a national emergency.
And look who's in the green room. Donald Trump.
House Democrats pushing forward with a resolution to block the president's national emergency on the border, a move the president vows to veto at any cost.
GOP Congressman and U.S. Air National Guard pilot Lieutenant Colonel Adam Kinzinger is a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He joins us now to react. Congressman, Lieutenant Colonel, thank you for your service. You just spent a couple of weeks down at the border for your as service. Tell us what you saw down there.
Look, I support the emergency declaration because when I went out there, there's a lot of immigration issues. We saw a lot of groups coming across the border illegally, but we saw a lot of drugs. We saw a lot of human trafficking. I've seen it. By the way, I've done 3 prior border deployments, all under President Obama. Okay, so it was never controversial under President Obama. With President Trump, we went down there. One of my crews, 70 pounds of meth on their very first mission they pulled. I found a woman that was hunkered down in the desert that was abandoned by her coyotes, the drug cartel that would bring her over and abandon them at any sign of trouble. This was all over the place, so I support. I got to tell you one thing that really bothers me, and I'm never one that really comes on TV and ever gets angry because I like to stay calm. But I found out when I was leaving the border in Tucson that the governor of Wisconsin, and this is going to make news because he hasn't even announced it because I don't think he has the courage to do it because I don't think Wisconsin would support it. The governor of Wisconsin, I heard from the Tucson sector, has pulled all his guard troops now out of the Tucson sector. And I'm curious about something. I'm curious if the governor of Wisconsin ever bothered to go down and see what his men and women were doing in the border to support Border Patrol and to protect the Wisconsin community. Because when I was there, he never showed up. He never showed up, and he would have seen the drugs that we took off the street. He would have seen the people that we rescued in the desert, and he would have seen his helicopters moving Border Patrol into rough areas to apprehend people that otherwise they would have to walk 2 or 3 miles in. This is the Democratic view of border security. They say that we want technology, we want to empower Border Patrol, and they pull the National Guard out despite having done it under President Obama. It's sickening.
Congressman, you went down there indifferent. You said, I want to see what, you've been there before. You didn't really know what you were going to find. You came back converted. This is an emergency. You know what? The governor of New Mexico says it's not. Says it's a trumped-up situation. Is she lying?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think she's looking at it through her view of politics, which is the only thing that matters right now. They cannot admit that President Trump says anything that makes sense. And so when he says build a wall, they're like, we don't like a wall, we like technology. Okay, fine, you don't like a wall, you like technology, then why in the name of heaven would you ever pull out the National Guard out of New Mexico? Or why would the governor of Wisconsin pull him out of Arizona when that is exactly the kind of technology you claim you support? They don't. And then they say it's all about the ports of entry, and I agree the ports of entry are an issue. It's the active duty forces that are actually hardening the point of entry, which is what the Democrats are calling for, but then they say these active duty forces are completely worthless. It is completely disingenuous from the left on this.
How much easier would your job have been, and would it have been as necessary if there was actual physical structures? Call them walls, call them barriers, call them what you want. How much would that improve the situation?
I am so glad you asked that. Let me tell you why. I never worked an area in Arizona that had a wall. There are some areas with walls, but the area that we had to go look at were areas that didn't have walls because that's where people were coming over. The Democrats will say, look at the terrain in Arizona. It's hard to traverse. There's a lot of mountains. There are. Guess where we did the majority of our looking for coyotes and drug mules? On the mountains. Guess where it was the hardest for the Border Patrol to insert to capture these people? On the mountains. That is why a wall is necessary. So don't listen to the rhetoric of the left.
So clarify that, even on mountains, even rough terrain, you think a physical barrier would be useful to slow down the flow?
I think where you can do it, or if you can do it in front of accessing that, but don't let people tell you that mountains or rough terrain prevents people from coming over. It's going to be the exact people that are bringing the drugs and the human trafficking over that are going to use that route because they know Border Patrol has just as hard of a time.
So 56 former national security so-called experts, 58, have weighed in to a letter to the president saying there's no reason for an emergency. There's no apprehensions are down 40% of the border. This is a ruse. Including Chuck Hagel, a Republican, Susan Rice, big shocker, James Clapper, big shocker. What's your response to that?
Well, I disagree. Some of it's a judgment call. If this was just an immigration issue, I probably would also agree it doesn't rise to the level of an emergency declaration. But this is drugs. This is human trafficking. And the reason partially that the border apprehensions are down, if it's true, is because these people understand now how to abuse American asylum laws. So they're just walking to points of entry, and instead of declaring asylum in Mexico where they should, they're basically taking their pick of where they want to live for the rest of their life, and it's not right.
And anybody that knows that you would also come on here and say, after my 2 weeks, my feeling is, if it was the other way, you'd be saying the same exact thing. So thanks so much.
I'm not afraid to say what I believe.
Right, so they pulled you off, now you're back for your other job. Congressman, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your service, too.
See ya.
All right, well, like father, like son, the story behind this military family heading overseas.
Wait a minute.
Your dad's going to sit down with Kim Jong-un. Why is this going to be different?
Listen, I think he's going to do what he does best. I mean, he's going to negotiate for the American people. I mean, he's made incredible strides and progress in terms of just eliminating some of this nuclear proliferation, the testing that's been going on, so much stuff. I mean, I'm so sick of watching the experts who've been dealing with North Korea for 60 years. I go, wait a minute. In 60 years, you guys never even got a meeting. You never even got in the room with the boss. He's done that in under 2 years. I mean, it's amazing strides, and so I love seeing the progress there, and he's going to do what he does best.
What about the Democrats bringing Michael Cohen to testify in public the same time so they could have the split screen?
Well, listen, I mean, think about that. I mean, you got a president trying to deal with, a major world issue, and to try to, distract or whatever it is by bringing in a convicted felon and known liar. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's pretty pathetic, but it really shows you how much, really the Democrats hate Trump. I mean, they hate Trump more than they love America by a long shot. And it's pretty disgusting that they would do that. And if their tactics aren't being exposed to regular Americans, I mean, you guys covered the Bill Maher. I mean, this is the sentiment, this is the disdain that the left has for hardworking, regular Americans. And, they're just wearing it on their sleeves these days. They don't even hide it anymore. It's just out there.
No, because if the president fails, America fails, which means you're rooting for failure. I mean, I don't understand. I can't relate to that mindset.
That's my point. I mean, they would rather see America fail than succeed with Trump at the helm. Now, they don't talk about all-time low African-American unemployment. They don't talk about all-time low Hispanic unemployment. They don't talk about, frankly, the fact that there is not a single, not one, economic metric where we are not better off today than we were under Obama, who did nothing right, but if according to the media, was the greatest president in the history. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. But, let's not talk facts, because facts destroy the left-wing narrative.
You guys don't look it, but the stress the Trump family's been under has got to be substantial. From the time he started running in 2015 to winning in 2016 to the nonstop investigation. The Mueller report is about to come out. Quickly, people are switching. They say people who like you or not are anti-Trump have said, don't worry about the Mueller report. Chris Christie said, I've always said worry more about the Southern District of New York. Watch.
The Southern District of New York investigation is monumentally more perilous to the president than Bob Mueller ever was or ever will be. They have 2 tour guides, George, and no restriction on where they can go.
Sovereign, they're doing their own thing. Do you feel that pressure? Is he right?
I'm not worried about it because, we function the way we function. We always have, we always will. I mean, I'm old enough to remember 2 weeks ago when Mueller was going to be the savior, but that's what they're trying to do. I mean, they're not investigating actual crimes anymore. They're literally just trying to find something that they can make a big deal of. And if that isn't apparent to people around the country. I mean, remember, 2 years, this is going to be it. We finally got him. I've been hearing this for 2 years where everyone's going to jail. Meanwhile, they haven't actually found anything as it relates to this. What they did was they put incredible pressure on regular guys that couldn't afford $1 million in legal fees and got them to slip up and say something incorrectly. They pretended they were their friends. They got them, and that's all that happened. There are no actual crimes. There's only things that people did in past lives. In 2006, before we even thought we'd ever get into this crazy world. And that's what it is. And they're touting these things as victories. It's not. And what it's been is a total farce. The greatest witch hunt in American history.
Is Chris Christie wrong that the Southern...
Well, no, by the way, I'm not saying they're not going to try. Okay. Listen, their dream in life, this is, as political as it gets, their dream in life is to try to find something to get Trump. I mean, it's that old Stalinist tactic, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. We just got to find it, and we can massage things enough. So, there's no doubt that they'll try. But again, I know how we functioned as a company. I know how we function as individuals, and that's why despite all of this, for 2 years, we don't appear all that worried because we know there's nothing there.
All for the sin of the wrong person getting elected.
Correct.
You wrote this op-ed about social media platforms targeting you, and it says, if big tech can censor me, think what it can do to you. Why'd you write this?
I wrote it because I put out a tweet sort of sarcastically hitting some of the Jussie Smollett thing, which is like, man, I'm really shocked that, people in downtown Chicago on the coldest night of the year weren't actually there wearing MAGA hats because, if you wore a MAGA hat in downtown Chicago, you probably wouldn't last too long, okay? About 2 seconds till you get shot. And all of a sudden I get this note from Instagram, it's been pulled. Because I had the gall to question what seemed like a crazy story. Now, we can't anymore question something. Yeah. This was a couple of weeks ago. I started sort of questioning it before others because it just didn't seem to add up to me. Now, if it was guilty and if it was true, you take these people out. That stuff can't be happening in this country. But man, it seemed a little bit weird that this sort of liberal activist that's been so there that someone would wait at 2 a.m. to try to take him out on the coldest night of the year because rich actors go out to Subway at 2 a.m. It didn't add up. And unlike most who were probably thinking the same thing, but these days it takes guts to actually go out there and question the narrative.
Why did they say they pulled it?
Well, they said didn't meet standards. Now, so I put it back up and say, oh really? This is what it is. These are the facts. Here's what it is. And I started getting inundated with people saying, Don, Instagram blocked me out of my account for trying to like your other tweets or the president's tweets. Instagram, I had to follow you 3 times in 1 week because every time I checked, my best friend in high school called me and was like, your stuff doesn't even show up in my feed anymore. Like, I don't know what's going on. When I search you in Instagram, Donald J. Trump Jr., you don't even show up as a top find.
Well, let me give you what Eddie Johnson said, Chicago PD superintendent, about this actual incident. You saw his presser on Friday. Yes. He just added to that.
The symbolism of a noose is very offensive. The city of Chicago has its issues. The Chicago Police Department has its issues with racism and excessive force and all of that. And I'm acutely aware of that. But we didn't earn this particular incident. And I just refuse to let us have to take that if I have evidence to the contrary. So I just want people to understand that's a damaging thing to do to a city and to a police department. So it's my responsibility to ensure that the record gets set straight.
Yeah, he's been really strong on this.
Listen, I thought he was great, and I thought the press conference was amazing, and he's 100% right. the problem with this sort of activism and the hoax hate crimes, I mean, you saw some reporters really come out and be like, and this one was a fake, and this one was a fake. And man, to me, it seemed like there were many more hoax hate crimes than there were actual. And the problem is, those hate crimes do still exist. I mean, racism is still a very real problem in this country. It's not the problem for everything, every grievance that you have. And so what happens is these things really do a disservice from people who are truly afflicted by this. Not some actor who's making $65,000 an episode who wants higher pay, who wants more attention by coming against Trump because that's the cool thing to do, but actual, real people who are hit by this. Because now you hear it, oh, it's right. Okay. Yep. Sure it is. Roll your eyes, move on. You can't say that. But that's what's actually happening, because every grievance, everything that you can't combat with facts, everything that you don't like, racist. It's just like, you know, let's call it's the easy button for the left. And that's not fair. It's not right. And so when you combine that with the internet censorship, like I said, when I have people calling me and just DMing me, inundating me, I've had to follow your account 3 times, or Instagram won't even let me like your account. I've been locked out trying to like your tweets. Then Instagram says, well, it's because it's spam-like behavior. Wait a minute. Someone trying to like a tweet of mine and being locked out, that's not spam-like behavior. It doesn't make any sense.
Social media and the success you had and the strategy you put together had a lot to do with the success you had, and then maybe there's a push out there, is what you're inferring, to stop it.
By the way, it's not just me. I got inundated with Second Amendment accounts. The same thing's happening to me, Don. I haven't grown. I had 1 week this summer, I called it out. I had something like 10 million organic impressions and 0 new followers looking at it. It's statistically impossible. So it feels like it's a dry run where they're trying to suppress any kind of right-wing message, any kind of conservative message for 2020. I mean, they're setting it up. They're just seeing how far they can get away.
If you're doing it already, they're coming.
Well, that's the point. If they can do it to me, think of what they can do to a regular guy that has 400 friends and their followers, and they just want to pass something along. Because guess what? That guy doesn't have a big soapbox like I do. They don't have the ability to, when they call it out, to get invited to come onto national TV and speak about it. I do, and I'm going to keep fighting this because it's not right.
So you got to come on more, Don.
I'll do it, man.
You're right down the block.
I'll do it, guys. We got to put an end to this nonsense.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Great
so
to see you.
Good seeing you guys.
Thank you. All right, deadly clashes erupting down in Venezuela as residents are fighting to get desperately needed aid blocked by Nicolas Maduro.
Rachel Road at Lewisberry Road this morning. And for folks making your travels, we again have lots of instances of downed tree and wires. Could certainly happen in your neighborhood or elsewhere as you're driving. Here, Route 94 between Harrisburg Street and Town Hill Road, still affected as we move this morning. Moving nicely for you over the travel lanes. Also still reportedly closed to a tree here, Route 209 at Coleman
in Venezuela. Let's give it a try.
I think he's about right. You know, you guys, your emails have been pouring in about the Oscars this morning. One of you on Twitter said, Oscars, see the barriers around it to keep those dangerous fans out. I thought they don't work. A lot of that on social media I caught beforehand. All the walls around on the ceremony for the rich folks.
Tim wrote, so I'll use a male voice. Anyone who wasted their time watching the Oscars really needs to reevaluate their life. Watching people slam our country and winning awards for movies most Americans have never seen or heard of is ludicrous. That's
I was hoping we would have a tweet from a female, so I could use a female voice.
Right. Well, you can't. You're out of luck.
No,
You're out of luck today.
Are done. All right, moving on. Deadly protests growing in Venezuela as people fight for much-needed aid blocked by the dictator Nicolas Maduro. Our own Rachel Campos Duffy says Democrats like
for the total denuclearization of an area of the world that was very dangerous.
There's ample evidence of collusion of the campaign.
This guy's a joke. He says the evidence of collusion is right in front of us, but guys, when you say that, typically you actually produce said evidence, which he has failed to do.
The president declared this national emergency, and now House Democrats are trying to block it, and that happens today.
The national emergency legislation from 1976 gives wide latitude to the president.
New York firefighters heading to Capitol Hill today to fight for the surviving victims of 9/11. Their compensation fund is running out of money.
Brad Keselowski is going to win the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
For Best Picture. And the Oscar goes to Green Book.
Which we all watched on the plane.
We've all seen it on the plane, on the small screen.
Right. You know what, though? I didn't finish it because the plane landed before before the movie ended, so I got to watch it again.
You do.
Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna have to fast forward.
Yeah, you would think
See how it
the
ends.
one time the
How does
plane
it
lands
end?
on time.
Were they successful?
Yeah, he dies. Okay, sadly. But the actor won who played him.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it was no host
Most
last
people
night.
know he died.
I know.
That's true.
I know,
It's
I
commonly
know.
known.
It's like Old Yeller, right?
Yes.
Did you guys watch the
Get
Oscars,
shot.
though? Did you watch
Did
it?
we what?
Watch it?
I watched a little bit of it. I watched, yeah.
We did
Because I knew we were
discuss
gonna be talking about
the Old Yeller movie. We definitely think they overreacted. I mean, there's always something else you could do except shoot a dog.
Sometimes.
Right.
So that was last night, the Oscars, and big week ahead. The president is going to Vietnam, going to meet with Kim Jong-un.
Ed Henry is going to be, he's our chief national correspondent, demands to be introduced as chief correspondent, so I just want to make sure legally I got that right. Ed, tell us what to expect.
Well, guys, the president is clearly fired up. He's about to meet with the nation's governors at the White House, but he just tweeted moments ago that when he heads over here to where I am in Hanoi, he is confident that Kim Jong-un will make what he calls a wise decision to move towards complete denuclearization of his nuclear program in exchange for becoming an economic powerhouse. First, he would have to verify that he's moving that way, Chairman Kim, and then the U.S. would be open, of course, to relieving tough U.S. sanctions that are right now crippling the North Korean economy. Let's remember, you see those pictures there. It was just last June that President Trump made major progress by sitting down with the dictator. They signed a framework that included, by the way, bringing back some remains of our soldiers who were lost in the Korean War. Was a big step. We're also told that now on the table in Hanoi will be the possibility of a formal end to the Korean War, which never happened. That could move things forward. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says this is a whole different, tough approach compared to the Obama days. Watch.
Test, pray, and cower has been upended by President Trump. We've put real economic pressure on the North Koreans. We've built out a global coalition. One of the critiques is that we go it alone. We've built out the world's coalition to communicate to Chairman Kim that now is the time, now is the moment, and I hope we'll make real progress on that this week.
Well, new this morning, Senate Democrats have a tough letter to the president demanding that he stand strong against Kim Jong-un, saying in part, we believe your next meeting with Kim that thus must demonstrate tangible, verifiable progress on denuclearization. They're trying to lay out a tough stand there, but interesting because the critics on the Democratic side did not take the same approach back in the Obama days, number one. And number two, some of those same critics a year and a half or so ago charged the president, President Trump, was moving us closer to nuclear war with his rhetoric. Just the opposite has happened as the temperature is dialed down, guys.
Ed Henry, thank you very much. Great reporting out there. Appreciate it.
All right, 4 minutes now after the hour, let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and host of a brand new podcast. It's excellent, called Newt's World. So you can go get it, download it, find out what Newt's thinking about. But I want to find out what you're thinking about now. Newt, what does success look like on North Korea, this summit, too?
Oh, I think success is any steps towards a more open North Korea, any steps toward accountability for where their nuclear weapons are. I don't think you're going to get a sudden jump. I know the president's always very optimistic. He's always very positive. But I don't think he's going to get a gigantic jump unless the combination of economic opportunity and offering to end the war, which after all militarily ended in 1953. So you could argue that after 66 years, it wouldn't be too big a risk. But that would have real implications for life on the Korean Peninsula. And I think that they've got to approach it very carefully because it could change our status in South Korea, which would be potentially very destabilizing.
They could tell our soldiers to leave, right?
This stuff's pretty complicated.
Yeah, they could tell our soldiers to leave.
They would raise, look, they couldn't tell them, but they could raise the question, why are you still here if the war's over? Now, on the side of the South Koreans, I think they clearly believe, Clifton and I were just there about 3 weeks ago and spent some time in Seoul and went up to the DMZ, to the militarized zone. And we really got the sense that the South Koreans very much want to see us move forward, but carefully and cautiously, because there's not a huge level of trust here. I think what the president's done so far in opening up Kim Jong-un, getting him to travel, frankly, if you have his kind of dictatorship, every time you leave the country, you got to wonder whether or not the military is going to let you back in. So I think just getting him to travel is a significant step in the right direction. And I think Secretary Pompeo has been very clear. If he doesn't